Welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. Today's guest is my friend, Derek Tyler, and we've known each other, I guess, 5-6 years now. And he's in the disclosure movement, and he has a couple of books out. Alien Contact, The Difficult Truth, and Alien Contact Paradigm Shift. And for those of you who don't speak Latin, that motto on the bottom of this, gustatus similis plus, means taste like chicken. Welcome, Derek.
Hello, thanks for having me back, Penny. Nice to see you. Always one of my favorite people.
Thanks. We talk a couple of times a week in Facebook Messenger, and I've really enjoyed our friendship. And when you said you wanted to come back, I was like, yes. So,
well, I'm glad. I haven't done interviews for several years. I just got tired of every show in the world seemed to want me on, and I just got tired of it. It's just taking too much time. And so this first one I've done for 3 or 4 years. But if I'm going to pick one to do, I'm glad it's yours.
Thank you. I've told people who told me that I should be more aggressive and that I should run these more like journalistic interviews, and I'm like, I think I get as much information by my kitchen clutch style, and people are willing to come back. So
well, information is all we have in the end. Data is all we have. And if you mess with the data, anything you say then is useless.
Pretty much. There's a lot of people out there that I've caught them twisting the data to what they wanted it to be rather than what it objectively was. That's one of the big.
I leave their bodies laying in the street. That's just like stepping in the OK Corral with Wyatt Earp. As far as I'm concerned, I'll gun you down, like to catch you lying to it, because it's too important. It's too important to lie about.
It is. That's one of the problems that I have with the New Age movement at large, is that they don't believe there's a real reality, and if there's not a real reality, then there is no real truth. Now, I have noticed that there's a lot more options in that real truth than most people are able to see.
Well, the New Age movement it's a perfect psyop in a way. It's like the Flat Earth movement. It's a perfect psyop because it looks good from a distance, and it sucks people in. And once they're into it, it keeps them from looking for the real answers to the questions they really want to hide. And once you're in there saying namaste with all your stupid friends and thinking you're an enlightened being, you don't ever chase after the questions that they really don't want you to find the answers to. And that's the important ones. If it was as easy as the New Age people make it think it is, they would not be killing people to keep them quiet.
And they are.
And they are. And this world is not. It's not becoming more enlightened. If you think it is, you're a fucking idiot. There's just as much hatred and evil in this world as there's ever been. It's not becoming more enlightened. And no matter how many New Age groups get together, that doesn't change.
Well, I'm seeing that there are levels to a lot of things. I know that pretty much everybody goes through that beginning stage where they are just so shocked by everything they find that they're sitting there in shock, and they're just like little birds with their mouths open. But after you start digesting some of this stuff and you end up literally puking it out, you start to be a little more discerning. And
it takes a long time.
That takes a lot of time.
Because when you first start, you don't know what's true from what's not true, and you don't know how to tell the difference.
Yeah. And you eventually get to a point, if you keep at it, where you can. But
It
it's
takes a lot. It
really,
takes a lot of learning.
it really takes a lot of work. And most people these days are too busy working a job, taking care of kids, cleaning the
Right.
house.
And it's inevitable that you're going to get stuck when you're first starting out with people who are con artists or they're just idiots, and you're going to end up going down dead end trails and believing things that aren't true and wasting time and energy, which are the only things you have to spend.
Mhm. Yeah, you have time and energy, and sometimes you have money, and these con artists are there to take your money, and the agencies are there to take your time and energy and
Yeah.
keep you spinning in circles, chasing your own tail, rather than finding the truth they're trying to hide.
There's never been a time that I'm aware of that anyone can prove that the Pleiadians have helped us with a damn thing. They can't prove it. I mean, they're saying all these things. We're going to help you do this. We're going to help you do that. They can't prove they've ever helped us with anything. And this solar system is in enemy territory. You know, we're not in Pleiadian country. We're in reptilian country. And
Mhm.
they're not free to come down here and do anything they want. You know?
We are in the smack middle of the Draco Empire, and anyone who thinks that they have gotten rid of the Draco, my question is, okay, I served with the Germans out there, and they were allied with the Draco. In fact, that's how they paid for the rent on the planets that they colonized, was by serving the Draco militarily. And when somebody decided that they didn't want the Draco in their lives anymore, the Draco had us come and drop big rocks on their planet.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, these people that are saying we've gotten the Draco gone and all
It's
this,
just fantasy.
it's complete. I'm going to be less polite. They're pulling it out of their ass.
It'll be easy to tell because the abductions will stop and the Fed will be dismantled.
And before that, they will drop big rocks on us.
Well, we're certainly vulnerable.
Yeah,
I mean, really, if
that's,
you're a species that's just coming into technology, the dumbest thing you can do is send radio signals out from your planet in all directions 24 hours a day. That's the dumbest thing you can do, and we've been doing it for almost 100 years. It's just like saying, "Here we
yep.
are, we're defenseless. Come and take us over."
Yeah, we're here. We're at this stage of development.
We could be defending
We're,
our planet, but we're watching I Love Lucy. Come on over.
oh yeah. And the worst of it is, all these other beings are out there watching I Love Lucy with us.
Right. It's not a good way to make first impression.
I don't know. I think she's funny.
The first broadcast that was ever put out on the radio with enough wattage to make it out to outer space and keep going was Hitler's speech, one of Hitler's speeches. So that's not good either.
Well, I'm not sure anybody's speeches are worth broadcasting out into space.
We should, we
I
should,
listen to them and I get 90% propaganda,
oh yeah.
5% 5% facts that are usually twisted, and 5% threats that if you don't go along with my program, I'm gonna destroy you.
And we've never
So,
been here alone ever. They were here before we were in existence.
oh yeah,
We've never been alone in this world. It's not like they just appeared in 1945.
all you have to do is look at the ancient bas reliefs in any ancient city, and I'm
Yeah.
talking 2 to 6,000 years ago, any ancient city, you're going to find bas reliefs of beings that are obviously extraterrestrial
Yep.
or at least not human. And, you know,
Some of them are the exact spitting image of grays. Many of them are. There's
there
no way you can
are
say that's a grasshopper, man. That's a gray.
grays, there are chimeras, there are
Reptilians.
reptilians,
I saw a cyclops that was drawn on a cave wall in Australia 6,000 years ago. Big cyclops with grays around it and spaceships in the air.
well, that's pretty definitive, isn't it?
Yeah, seems that way. I mean, they're
There's
everywhere.
more stuff about Australia too, because they have places that their government is slowly destroying that have Egyptian hieroglyphics and
Really?
stories about princesses that were missing in Egypt that
Wow.
they found their way through storms to Australia and were setting up their own civilization there.
Wow.
And all of that's being slowly destroyed, and nobody seems to care.
And the thing about writing on cave walls is there's only a few cave walls to go around. You know,
Yeah,
it's not like they have unlimited stacks of paper. There's only a few cave walls to go around, and if they're going to draw something on a cave wall, it's something they felt was important enough that they wanted to pass it on to future generations. You can't just ignore it and say it's a myth.
exactly. Or or that it was some sort of a drug trip.
Right.
So now you've got these two books out about UFO contact. I know you've been posting on your Facebook wall recently about that there are ships in your sky on a regular basis. You want to talk about those?
Well, yeah, I've been around for a long time. For people that don't know me, I've been doing this for over 35 years now. I've seen, I've done, I've been, I've got the t-shirts. I've developed a network of contacts that are far
Mm-hmm.
beyond anything I could have dreamed of when I was younger that I would ever have access to. And I've got my own experiences too. And I've heard every kind of sighting report there is, you know. I've heard every kind of abduction report there is. I've interviewed over 4,000. I stopped counting at 2,000 abductees in 1998. So I don't know that there's anyone who's ever interviewed more than I have. And I'm an abductee myself. But I've never heard of this before. There's craft that come out here. They hang in the sky like double bright streetlights, white streetlights, and then they move side to side. Some of them just hang there. Sometimes there's up to a dozen of them, and some of them will move over towards maybe a quarter to half mile from me, a residential zone, and then they'll just pass back and forth over this residential zone. Sometimes they'll wink out for a minute and come back on, and there's no reason. This town is not that exciting. It's not worth checking out that close. And they've been doing this 3 or 4 nights a week all summer long, and this is the 4th year in a row that they've done it. They can't be civilian craft because they're silent. They're completely silent, and the military is not allowed to run operations over cities, unless it's the Blue Angels practicing for something, because that's why they got 500,000-acre military reservations, so they don't break out our windows with sonic booms and stuff. They're completely silent. 2 nights ago, instead of just being white, there were some red ones too that were flashing on and off, all red. Sometimes they seem like they're white with red and blue flashes on them, but these were all red, and they stay for 4 to 5 hours every time. They come right when it gets dark, and I don't know what the hell they're doing. I mean, this town is not worth checking out that close. Even for aliens, there's nothing special about this town. There's no military installations here. There's nothing like that. And I've
Maybe
looked.
there's something you don't know about.
No, there's nothing I don't know about. I smoke Rockstar pot and I know stuff. That's what I do.
Yeah,
There's just
I'm
there's.
like that.
Well,
I don't do drugs, but I hang out and kind of feel.
it looks like they're
And
practicing strafing runs. It's the only thing that looks. The only thing I connected to. Looks like they're practicing for strafing runs. But this is just a typical little civilian zone of the city. It's not the major part of the city at all. But they're always over the same little part. And I've learned over the last few days that it's not just happening here. It's happening fucking everywhere. I've had friends from around here in different towns who've seen the same thing over their town. One of my best friends, just went to Burning Man. She said that they saw the same thing at Burning Man in the sky, and she talked to these people that were there from Arkansas, and they had filmed the same thing in their town in Arkansas. So
now, for the audience, you live in California, right?
I live in just south of Seattle, Auburn,
Okay,
Washington. I'm between Seattle and Tacoma.
okay.
But but they filmed the same thing that we're seeing in Arkansas. You know, it's the same time frame, and that means that they're all over. They're not just here. What that means is there's probably thousands of them. That's just not isolated incidents. There's probably excuse me. There's probably 1,000 little towns that I never heard of where they are doing the same thing, and people aren't noticing them. I talked to
Well,
the cops about it a couple weeks ago, and they didn't even know that those things were coming here. And this is the fourth summer they've been doing it in a row. They called the airport. I said, call the airport. They got them on radar. They called the airport, and the airport said, we're not going to talk to you about it, period. Even to the
wow.
cops. So, yeah.
Well, I know where I live. I'm in the mountains north of Yosemite, and we have so much stratospheric injections, in plain English, chemtrails. But it's enough that you can't really see the stars. You can't really identify what's out there. So it's like they're disguising everything.
Well, these are well below the cloud level. I mean, you can't really miss them. And
Well,
once or twice they flew right over my condo.
I have the black helicopters that fly over my apartment. So.
Man, that's because you're a celeb. You got to be special to draw the black helicopters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like every night one of them comes over, or sometimes more than one of them, and it's like, okay, guys, yeah, I know you're there. And we've had issues with Pacific Bell trucks parked across the street. Now, for those of you who live in the rest of the country, Pacific Bell was one of the baby bills, and they got enough money that they bought the mother company back and changed their name to AT&T in the 1990s. So there has not been a Pacific Bell for at least 25 years.
Right.
And so when a Pacific Bell truck sits across the street every day for months, you know they're not who they're pretending to be. And one day, my partner Lou decides that he's had enough of this crap, and he goes across the street and he tells the guys, you know, if you're going to hang out here all the time, why don't you build yourselves a brake shed? And they left about an hour later, and they've not been back. Except we told our neighbor about this because we were cracking up, you know. I mean, it's either get really pissed or laugh at them, right?
Right, but there's nothing funny about it, though. That's the trouble.
Exactly. But we told the neighbor about this, and she knows that I have this show, and she was asking how things were going. So we told her about the Pac Bell truck, and she tells us a couple of days ago, you know, There was an AT&T truck that was sitting there all day.
Huh. Huh.
And I'm
Well,
like,
they can use anything they want, you know. They don't have to obey trademarks or laws. They can use any kind of corporate logo they desire, and they
she
do.
she was scared because at that point it verified that yes, I'm being watched.
And they'll watch people for their whole lives just because those people had the bad luck to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and see something they weren't supposed to see. They'll watch you for the rest of your life. You'll be once you get on a government watch list, you never come off of it.
I
Never.
I have been watched since 1970 because I went to JPL with my science class from high school.
Really.
And I was identified at JPL as having been part of the Black Ops. And
Uh,
from that point forward, I have been watched everywhere I've gone. And I've been all over California.
and they have so much technology that they can use against you if they want to that it's it's really beyond imagining. I mean, I've been made to feel like that guy in Enemy of the State back in the 90s when I first started becoming sort of more public about things. I mean, they did things to me sometimes just I think to show me that they could.
Yeah.
They'd break into my chats, my private chats, and they'd send messages under my name and email and chat that I had no idea about, just to show me that they could. They tapped my phones, they did everything.
Even today, I pay for Zoom and we got on there and all of our equipment worked separately, but putting it together, I couldn't hear you, and that's why we're on Skype
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
And you even had to go through an ad and it had been deleted from Skype, so we had
yeah.
to redo that.
They control
So
all that stuff.
it
And they
took
can listen to
us.
you all the time, no matter what electronic medium you use, they can listen to you. And they can listen, now they have technology, they can actually listen to your thoughts, as you know, Penny.
Mhm.
They can listen
Yeah,
to your thoughts. They can
in
listen to everybody in the
fact,
area's thoughts at once if they want to.
they started rolling V2K out in 1981. That's how long they've been able to read thoughts.
Yep,
And that's a CIA program. It's got lots of different sub-programs. One of them is called Project Satan, and there was an actual movie about that. Um, 2004. What was the name of it? It'll come to me. I'll put it in the comments for the description. But there was a movie about Project Satan and about how they can use the mind reading parts of V2K to be able to imprint pain patterns onto you.
right.
And it's somebody else's pain that they've recorded, and they can place it over your brain patterns and make you feel the most intense pain. And
Because
there's nothing,
brainwaves are all the same between us.
and because there's nothing physically wrong with you, you can go to the doctor and you're in agony and they can't do a damn thing for you because it's a brainwave problem.
Yep, and they
But
can make you want to commit suicide if they get tired of you.
and the movie even told you how to block it because the people in the movie were using those copper scrubby things and unrolling them and lining baseball caps with them. And that's how they were able to block it because it formed a Faraday cage in the cap.
Yep, I used to make fun of those people. I used to think they were like the Gilligans of UFO study. And then I bought a metal mouse pad once, and I used to my ears used to start ringing one at a time from beams they'd send at me. When I'd hold that up in front of my ears, they would stop. It worked every time. And so I was made a fool of by the Gilligans of ufology. They were right.
Well, I have a foolproof test for folks. Everybody has a spaghetti pot, right? All you have to do is put the spaghetti pot over your head, and if the weird noises and the voices stop, it's V2K. If they don't, you have a mental problem.
Yeah, that makes perfectly good sense, and I agree with you. That'll reflect all those signals right back to them.
Mm-hmm. It will completely block whatever they're sending in. So if you have a spaghetti pot over your head and everything stops, you know it's V2K. And at that point, you need to get some sort of an EMF blocker cap to preserve your own sanity. Now, don't use aluminum foil because aluminum attracts those signals.
I think it would be smart to sleep in a Faraday cage if we could. It couldn't hurt anything, you know?
Well, I live in a fire zone, so Faraday cages have their own dangers.
Oh.
You're locked inside this thing, and if a fire starts, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So,
it's a dangerous world out there, man, and it's getting worse all the time. The technologies that they can make use of that the public has no idea even exist are tremendously powerful. And because nobody's looking for them, nobody suspects that they are real. And so they can get away with using them for indefinitely, really.
well, there's a whole range of things that are being called non-lethal or less than lethal technologies that are used for riot control and have been tested in military applications. A lot of them were tested in Afghanistan. And one of them in particular, they would send out basically EM waves like V2K on steroids. And the locals had done enough homework that they were literally rolling aluminum foil around themselves and blocking the effects of that particular weapon to the point that they had to pull it out of Afghanistan.
Can you imagine using a weapon like that against people who throw rocks?
Yeah.
You know, that's the ultimate high-tech weapon to them is rocks and sticks, and you're using V2K on them?
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's exactly the kind of crap that we've been doing for a long time. Testing very high-tech weapons on people that are so poor that they're living in tents and their weapons are rocks and sticks.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I hate to be crude, but what the fuck do we think we're doing?
And Afghanistan was never about Al-Qaeda or bin Laden. It was never about that.
No.
The thing about Afghanistan is it supplied 95% of the world's opium poppies were grown in Afghanistan. And when the Taliban came to power, they outlawed opium poppy growth, farming. And the CIA didn't like that. And as soon as we took the Taliban out, they made it legal again, and they're the biggest crops ever now.
All of our wars since World War II have been about God, G-O-D, gold, oil, and drugs.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that people need to keep in mind, and I know the younger generation doesn't know this, but Bill Cooper was one of the people that I followed. And yeah, I'm old enough, I know about Bill Cooper.
The most valuable whistleblower in history right there.
Yes. He came out a couple of weeks before 9/11 and said there will be an event that he didn't know what was planned, but there would be an event and they would blame Osama bin Laden for it.
Yep.
and for us to not believe it. And because he said that on his radio show,
They killed him.
they didn't just kill him. He was unarmed, and they brutally murdered him and left him to bleed out on his front yard.
And his
They
son.
left in the sun for
I mean, and they killed his son too at the same time.
18 hours. They left that man bleeding out on his front yard before they allowed the ambulance in. And it wasn't even his local sheriff, it was the one from the next county over.
Yep.
This was a government hit job.
It was a government hit job all the way.
And then they decided to tell everybody he was a domestic terrorist. So, having watched that, I know pretty much what fate they have in mind for me. And I'm going to speak the truth as long as I'm able, and they can just deal with it. They can either take me out and verify my story, or they can ignore me, and I will keep talking anyway, and some people will hear the truth in my words, and the others, they won't matter anyway.
I think the first thing that anyone who's just starting to study this subject should listen to is Bill Cooper's original 2-hour lecture in black and white film. You'll get more truth and more information from that lecture than you'll ever hear from anything else, and it'll certainly start you in the right direction.
His presentation at Porterville.
Is that what that is?
That, I believe it was in color, but it was one of the most important documentaries that I've ever seen.
I don't know how he got all that information, but it was incredible how much that man knew. And it was all legitimate.
He was Navy intelligence.
Well, he got a lot of information that you didn't know if it was true or not way back then, but it's all turned out to be true.
Mm-hmm.
The only mistake he made was he came out toward the end of his life and said he thought that UFOs were just a big government psyop, which is not true.
No, it isn't.
But that's before that. I mean, he was dead on the money so many times, and his book is a classic. You know, it's everyone should read that book.
Yeah, my Facebook group, I have a set of documents in group files, and his book was one of the first things I uploaded to it. And fortunately, his heirs are not enforcing the copyright because they wanted his information out.
Yeah, and that book's been out for a long time now too.
It has. But if you don't understand the stuff that came out from the 40s to the 80s, and you just start looking at ufology as it is now, you're gonna think we're all just batshit.
You can't understand it that way.
Yeah.
And you can't understand it without a good, solid grounding in what the military does and how the military reacts to aliens and what they've done with regard to them over the years, because it all ties together and it all affects every one of us every day, whether we know it or not. And if you just think you can, like Bud Hopkins, you remember Bud Hopkins?
Oh yeah.
I used to know Bud Hopkins, and he had a blind spot a mile wide. He didn't want to hear anything about the military or conspiracies. So he never connected any of that stuff up, and he never understood what was going on at all. God bless him, you know. He never understood what was going on at all.
It's okay. It's impossible to understand what's going on with UFOs without understanding that there have been black ops all along, that humanity has been used in space for millennia. If you look at the ancient mythology, you find the demigods, you find the heroes of mythology, and you start getting the same description. They don't look like their fathers, so they have to be the child of the gods. They're stronger, they're smarter, they have psi abilities, they have technologies given to them by the gods. They're
Right.
able to teleport, they're able to pull off what what are seen as miraculous deeds. But inevitably they go crazy and kill their loved ones. Now, what does that sound like? That sounds like super soldiers to me.
And they
The
have,
The only real difference is today we're doing it to each other instead of ETs doing it to us.
and they have such advanced technologies that we can't even imagine them. And when somebody tells you about them, it sounds like some retarded fairy tale that you just can't believe. But it's true, and they use them against us, and we won't even believe they're possible. But these are beings that have had space flight for 1 billion years.
Mhm.
I mean, you don't even want to know what they're capable of. 1 billion years. They've had space flight for longer than humans have existed, and they're smarter than us too.
Well, there's a couple of videos out with Bob Dean where he talks about the reason that it was all clamped down on was because the ETs proved to the American government that they created us, and that meant that all of our deities on Earth were actually ETs, and that would undermine religion as we know it.
What's the only
And
explanation that makes sense
it
for
does.
for for our creation? Otherwise, that's why Pleiadians and that's why they look like us. They don't look like us. We look like them.
Exactly.
It
And
wouldn't. You can't just evolve that way on accident. And then in this planet, the life here, like in the Cambrian explosion, it didn't just appear all at once out of nothing. It was brought here, and some of
yeah,
it survived, and some of it didn't survive. And that's why there's such a plethora of different life forms on Earth. We're like a big warehouse or a zoo they brought stuff here to see if it would survive. Some of it did, some of it didn't.
and that's why so many of the extinct species are you're starting to see comebacks is because they're restocking.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
I get this obvious connection. And like you said, you have to see the big picture. You have to see how the military behaves. You have to see the history in the mythology. And you have to see what's in the occult side, which that only means hidden. It doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. It's just that it's been hidden. So you have all of these things that are there, but so much of it we have the stigma about even admitting that we've read it.
Well,
And
and then the supposed evolution of humans makes no sense at all. It doesn't
no,
even make sense. In the first place, there's not nearly enough time for that to happen. Another thing is, if you drop black people wandering from Africa into China, you go back in 20,000 years, you don't have Chinese people there. You have black people in China. That's what you have. That's
yeah,
just not how it works. And the idea that the sun's shallow angle of the sun's rays is what made black folks turn into Scandinavians is the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. Didn't work in Argentina,
uh,
and there's no evidence that there was ever any black people in Scandinavia ever that turned into anything. It's just evolution. The story of
gen-
evolution does not work.
genes have to come from somewhere. Genes that work have to come from somewhere. They
Yeah.
don't just pop up. That's one thing we've learned from the atomic age is that genetic mutation is almost always bad.
And I think in spacefaring civilizations, I think DNA is currency. I think that DNA is the most valuable thing you can have because they can genetically engineer it into anything else.
Well,
Anyone that thinks in two-celled
there's a lot of
amoeba
that.
could turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger through natural selection is an idiot. Amoeba does not turn into Stevie Nicks or Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's not how it works.
Yeah, you end up with, by natural selection, you get whatever's adapted to the environment and hasn't managed to kill itself off through mutations.
They say you can breed as many generations of moths as you like, but what you're going to come out with is always going to be a moth. It's always going to be a bug. It's never going to be a weasel.
Yeah, the shift from one species type to another, just, it never made sense to me. When I was in college, I was taking the pre-med microbiology chemistry route, and they kept shoving evolution down my throat, and I kept telling it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And they said, well, it's what's on the test, you have to learn it.
But it should be so easy to prove. If it was real, there would be millions and millions of intermediate life forms. There'd be something that had a short neck that was turning into a giraffe. But there's not.
Well, what you have is you have all of these pictorial references
Right.
to extraterrestrials. And I think it's time that we stopped calling it all religion or drug trips and started thinking about, well, maybe these people were actually drawing what they saw.
Well, they were drawing what they saw because they didn't have fantasy fiction back in those days. They were just trying to survive. The Aborigines were not great writers of fantasy epic novels. And if they put it on a cave wall, it's because they wanted the future to know what they'd seen, and they drew it as best as they could. And that was all they had. That was the only way they had to communicate with the future.
And if they wanted the future to know about it, they probably thought that those beings were dangerous.
Yep. I mean, there's woodcuts of a battle in the sky in the 1500s that they drew in Germany. I'm sure you've seen those. Several people drew them, and the sky was full of exploding, battling starships. It was like in the 1560s sometimes. I mean, they didn't have UFO stories back then to sell to people. It was what really happened.
Yeah, it was all these artists that have all this religious art, and you look closely and there's UFOs in the sky, and you're going,
Yep.
I wonder where they got those. And where
Yep.
we call them saucers, the Romans called them shields. And if you take a look at the Roman shields, they look pretty much like our saucers.
It's an amazing thing. I mean, people are so misled. I mean, it's nothing that we learn is true. Nothing that they tell us is true turns out to really be true in the end. Everything that we learned about history, it's not really true. History's a game. It's been manipulated all along by people in powers that we don't see.
Well, I think there are certain core aspects of history that we have enough of the truth that if we dig, we can decipher it. But nothing, I think, is written in clear language where it's easy.
Well,
they want us to believe that the folks in power now have always been in power and that they've always been the good guys. And the truth of the matter is that if you're a good guy, you don't come to power.
Seems that way.
And that's.
And once they get power and money, they hide the way that they got it from us, and they make it illegal for us to do because they don't want to share.
They also make it really, really, really hard to prove anything.
Yeah. And look, when you got out of high school, how much did they teach you about money and finance in high school? Nothing. That's how much. Nothing.
I took bookkeeping, and I at least learned how to keep track of it.
Well, they
But
should be teaching us how to make money, how to save money, how to earn money, how to invest money. That should all be part of our basic education. But they don't say anything about that. Instead, we're taking shop classes and stuff, and we come
they
out
don't
into the adult
teach
world
shop.
and we don't know.
They don't teach shop anymore.
Oh, they don't.
No,
I didn't know
not in
that.
California anyway.
Huh.
They don't teach any. They stopped teaching shop and home ec and art and music in the 1980s, whenever the California came up with Proposition 13 that cut how much they could take from property taxes for the schools.
I see.
And they started doing special assessments and all kinds of weird stuff to come up with more and more money. But they have a set of core classes that's all they teach. And it's basically reading, math, and their alternate history.
They don't teach you about the Constitution.
No, they're no longer
We
teaching
come out of high
about
school
the
without knowing
Constitution.
anything about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. You ask somebody about it now, they won't be able to tell you anything about it. They won't be able to tell you how many people are in Congress, how many people are in the Supreme Court. They won't know anything about it.
Yeah, well, I keep passing around. I have some PDF documents that are from the sovereigns, and I keep passing those around privately. And while I don't think everything the sovereigns come up with is valid, their basic understanding of the Constitution is. And so I've been passing those around.
You ever seen a guy named Ernie Turtlegate who thinks he's a sovereign citizen? I send you some clips on Ernie
No.
Turtlegate. He went into court saying he's a sovereign citizen and wasn't controlled by their laws. Who were they were given their titles by the English royalty and oh man, there will be no legally spoken in here, only plain English. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm Facebook friends with Anna von Reitz. She's a judge in Alaska from a common law court, which is it's not a official court, but they handle a lot of cases that don't make it to official court. And she makes more sense than most of the rest of them.
Yep.
I
like Jordan Maxwell too.
He made sense in a lot of ways, yeah. The conference I'm speaking at next month, Sean David Morton is on the roster. So I'm going to be curious to see what he says after having been sentenced to prison and gotten out recently. So the courts did not like his approach to the sovereign situation.
It takes their power away, and he's probably right. That stuff about that Jordan what's his name used to say about how they
Jordan Maxwell.
Yeah, how all your official legal documents are typed in all capital letters because your corporate name.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yes.
And about how we're being tried under the not under the law of land, but the law of the sea when we go to court, and that's why they have the fringed flag.
Yep. There's a whole lot of what they talk about that is absolutely correct. The thing that isn't correct is you being able to use their ideas in standard court and winning.
Right, that's right. They'll throw you in jail just for trying, and you can't do anything about it.
Yes.
Once you're in jail, you're in jail. That's it.
One of the things that I had issues with them was when they found out that I had Native ancestry. Now,
Oh,
it's far enough back that I can't even apply for citizenship in that tribe. So, but they said that because I had it at all, that I was a prisoner of war and that none of their remedies would apply to me because of that.
they asked Ernie Turtlegate why he appeared in court, and he said, "I did not appear in court. Spirits appear. I'm making a special visitation."
I've walked that line between hearing what they're saying and trying to not piss off the authorities at the same time, because I'm already over the edge with SSP.
Right, and you can't. One person cannot fight the world and win. They have too much. They have too much power and they have too much ammo.
And I'm at this point, I'm trying to expose that the government has been kidnapping and mind fracturing children at least since World War II.
And the top rungs are all satanic.
Well,
Donald Trump was the only exception I know of since Kennedy. If you listen to Obama's first campaign speech in reverse, his first slogan, "Yes, we can," you listen to it in reverse, it says, "Thank you, Satan. Try it and see." You'll be shocked.
I don't have the software to run things backwards, so
I'll give you a recording made of it.
okay.
When you run "Yes, we can," and you notice that he says "Yes, we can" in places of his speeches, it doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. But you run it backward, he goes, "Thank you, Satan." That's what it sounds like in reverse.
Wow.
Yep. And Michelle Obama has a dick. I don't care what anybody says. Oops. Joan Rivers was right about him.
Well, I've met several folks from that part of society, and there is a religion that they practice where the firstborn is sacrificed to their god, and if the child is not killed, it has to be raised as the opposite gender.
Really?
Yeah. And so that's the source of a lot of those things.
Wow. Huh. I never heard of that.
I was doing counseling with some of those sacrificed kids until I did a set of interviews with Gail of Gaia about that religion. And at that point, 2 of my good friends were killed, and
Oh, man.
all of the sacrificed kids I was counseling were also killed.
Oh, man. And there are
And
so many kids that are taken. It's beyond comprehension how many kids they steal. The numbers are fudged, so you'll never know, but there are kids that from poor places in the world, those kids nobody will ever look for them. The cops won't care, nobody will ever look.
It was an in-my-face reminder that they're listening to what I say and that there are real-world consequences to what I talk about.
Well, it's a shame because we're not doing any harm. You know, we're on the right side and we're paying their salaries, and they've declared war on us. They've declared war on us.
They declared war on us a long time ago. They declared war on the American people during World War II.
And now they just hired these IRS agents and train them in SWAT tactics. They're gonna send SWAT team raids of IRS agents for people that didn't pay their taxes. That doesn't even make sense. There's more IRS agents than there are border agents now. Border Patrol.
If you pay attention to all of the executive orders this century, all of the things that the presidents have slipped in, they have taken ownership of the land, the water, all the resources, weapons, stockpiled food, and you have to wonder what their eventual game plan is, because if you're watching these executive orders, and yes, they're publicly available on the White House website.
And they all fit together no matter what party the president is. They all interlock with each other.
Exactly. It's like somebody behind the scenes that isn't in office is writing them all together, and it's turning into this net, this webbing of these executive orders that are taking possession of our means of existence. And when I sat down one day and I was just reading one after the other, first of all, your mind gets a little numb, so you have to go back through and check the details. But after a while, you pick up the pattern, and the pattern was no matter who was in office, they were declaring they owned us. Well, at the same time, I was doing my family tree, and I was at the era of William the Conqueror. The first thing that William the Conqueror did in England when he got control was he had them take inventory of what the properties were, who owned them, and how much taxes they owed. That's called the Doomsday Book. The second thing he did was he declared he owned all of it. And that those people only had possession through his good graces. So that if he got pissed, he could take it away from you for no reason at all. Now, I'm looking at those executive orders at the same time while I'm doing my family tree. I'm at that stage of English history, and it's like my mind crossed circuit and said, oh shit, this is what they're doing. They're establishing the legal framework to take possession of everything.
Yep. And the funny part is the president doesn't have the power to pass laws, but they're going to obey these things anyway.
Those executive orders are illegal under the Constitution.
Yep.
And the people are not being taught the Constitution, so they don't know this.
And there's nothing you can do about it because the court won't take your case, and no lawyer will represent you.
Because they're part of the system that's doing it.
Exactly right. And if we just keep sleeping a little while more, it's going to be too late to save ourselves.
I think it's already too late to do it without a lot of bloodshed.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is.
Because I know what kind of technology they had in the Black Op that I was part of. If they apply that technology to the population here, the majority will surrender by the end of the first week, if they live that long.
5G is going to do that in a large way.
They're using slower technologies, the 5G, the stratospheric injections, the poisons in the water, the poisons in the food, the poisons in the medicine. Everything is poisoned, and you know they've got all this stuff going down, and you look at it, and each thing by itself is bad enough, but when you look at the entire picture, you start wondering how we've survived it all.
Yes, that's right. And the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which they say is just a fake, it's not. Everything that's in there is coming true. They've done every one of those things.
Well, the chemtrails have aluminum and
barium
and strontium and blood
Everything in them is
products
bad.
and viruses, and then you have fluoride and chlorine in the water, and those are both poisons. And
Right.
they're starting to put lithium into the stratospheric injections, and Australia just announced that they're going to do a vaccine through stratospheric injections. And, you know, this is the stuff they've bothered to tell us about.
Right.
They've
And none of
used
it's legal. We didn't ask for that. You know.
they've used so much glyphosate, aka I blanked on the name, the weed killer, Roundup. Thank
Roundup.
you, Lou. They've used so much Roundup that not only have they used it in the DNA of GMO plants, but they've used so much glyphosate that it's in the rainwater. Now, think about a weed killer is in the rainwater. And then you look at the films of the Sierra Nevada, and I use that because I live here. 2/3 of the trees are dead.
Yep.
You can look at the pictures, and anytime you see brown, that's a dead tree. And that dead tree, you get a spark near it, and that's a torch.
That's
And
all from
that's
chemtrails.
all from chemtrails. They're blaming global warming, but it's from chemtrails.
Yep.
And it's from the glyphosate in the rain.
People just they don't want to believe such things are possible, you know,
No, they don't.
and they don't want to, it doesn't occur to them that they could have been wrong all their lives about something, and that something so evil and nefarious could even be possible. And so you try to tell them and they think you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think I'm crazy. The neighbors, I go out the front door and they go in their apartments and they shut the door. And when one of them's trapped outside, I go, it's okay. I know you guys don't like me. Oh, yes, we do. Right. That's why you go in your door and shut it whenever I come out. Uh-huh. You know, I'm not stupid.
There's
I
a
know
poster
I
once.
know.
There's a poster once that said the thing about smart motherfuckers is they sound like crazy motherfuckers to dumb motherfuckers.
Exactly. People who want the narrative to be correct because it gives their lives stability and meaning.
Well, they've invested their whole lives in what turns out to just be a fairy tale or a cover story, but they've invested their whole lives in it,
Yeah,
and it's, you know, they're not going to let go. They're not going to let go no matter what you tell them. There's people that have invested their whole lives in the theory of evolution. They're not going to change their mind now, no matter what you say.
it's their religion. They're under
That's
they're
right.
under their underlying cause that balances their life. I mean, why else would okay, this is their average day. They get up before the sun's up. They have a cup of coffee, whatever they eat for breakfast. They go to work. They work 8 to 12 hours. They come home. They order pizza, and they either drink beer or smoke pot until they fall asleep in front of the TV. And then they get up the next morning and do the same thing.
The TV's been giving them their hypnotic instructions the whole time.
Exactly. So there's no reason for them to even want to take me seriously. It's okay. It's reality. I understand. I understand what I'm fighting against.
TV was designed not as an entertainment medium, it was designed as a mind control device. And it is the
It's
most effective mind control device in the history of the world. And as long as people are watching their televisions, we can't win because they will be hypnotized and instructed just the way the authorities want them to be instructed. I haven't watched TV for over 20 years, and it's the best thing I ever did for myself. And it's the best advice anyone will ever get is turn your television off and leave it off. It's the best advice you'll ever get.
I have 3 sons. And in the 1980s, I noticed the change from Father Knows Best to Homer Simpson. You know what I mean?
Oh, we're living in the Beavis and Butthead generation now.
But I noticed the change in the programming, in the way men were treated. And I was raising boys. And so one of my sons got rowdy with the Nerf ball in the living room, and the TV went plop face down, and I threw it away. Didn't get another one. I caught so much hell for not having a TV.
Yeah.
I was told I was culturally depriving my kids.
Yep. It's a known fact that they use sigil magic, they use neurolinguistic programming, they use hypnosis, all the flashing lights and the countdowns, they count you up, they count you down, they count you up, 3, 2, 1 to the news, 3, 2, 1 to the Super Bowl. Every time they count you back down, you go deeper in hypnosis without knowing it. And then they give you your orders, and you follow those fucking orders. You don't realize you've been given orders, but you have. They tell you who to vote for, who to like, who to trust, what to drive, what to eat, what to wear, everything there is. They tell you what to do, and you do it. And you're always spending money at their companies.
And then there's people like me and you who don't do it. We don't watch it.
Yeah, but we can't. We can't change the world. There's not enough of us. Not enough of us.
I have a TV, and I use it to watch Netflix. And yes, I have noticed that my thinking changes when I watch it too much.
You lose 10 to 20 IQ points from watching television. You gain it back within a year after you quit watching TV.
Yeah. I've stopped watching anything that is fiction. I've pretty much stopped reading fiction, unless it's something I would still read Jules Verne or Heinlein or Asimov, but as far as just the straight fiction that's being written today, nah.
They call TV shows programming for a reason.
Yeah.
Have you ever read a book called The Mote in God's Eye?
No.
Check it out. It's the best science fiction book I've ever read. The Mote in God's Eye by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. And there's a second book to it called The Gripping Hand that came out 18 years later. It's the best first contact book I've ever read.
Okay.
Very excellent.
I've been working on my books, both of them. The one that wants to be written and the one that you want me to write. And
I'm trying to make your life easier.
Yeah, I've been working on trying to write them at 8th grade level. I tried doing 6th grade level so the audience could understand it better, but I just can't. I just can't write that far down.
Don't do it. I wrote my books for graduate students. Everybody and their dog writes for 6th graders. Not me, baby. I'm writing a graduate fucking course for my books. I'm writing for people that have already been through that stuff and want to learn something more. You know, my books are not for rookies. And because I'm not a rookie and I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. It's too important and there's too much to be said. The rookies are already covered by the idiot stick authors out there, you know. And you don't have to write for those people either. 6th grade level, the truth of it is, 6th graders can't understand what you've been through. They wouldn't appreciate it. they wouldn't understand it, and it would be lost on them. Write it for intelligent people that want to read intelligent information.
Well, the issue that I've got is that what I experienced is so different from what the majority believe is out there that I thought the concepts were difficult enough without making the vocabulary difficult.
If anybody can understand the concepts, the vocabulary won't be a problem. And you tell your story to a sixth grader, they're not even going to begin to comprehend what you're talking about, man. Nacht Waffen in sixth grader, come on, man. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Sixth graders are reading Lucky Star and the Big Moons of Mars. You know what I mean? You know?
When I was a sixth grader, I was reading Heinlein.
Right, but he has a lot of those serial fiction too. You know, the sixth graders are reading like a Warp in Time. Remember that book?
Yeah.
They're not reading the Nacht Waffen versus Solar Ward and stuff. That's so far beyond what their background prepares them for that they would not even comprehend it. And there's a lot of people, not enough, but there's a lot of people that are like you and I out there that have already learned the basics, and we want more, but you can't find more. And that's the market I'm shooting for.
Everybody's wanting to do New Age Pleiadians.
Right. And I don't deal in my books. You'll find no guessing and no speculation. I don't deal with those things. You can guess and speculate as well as I can. I'm not going to waste your time with my guesses. If I don't know it's true, I don't talk about it. If I talk about it, then you can take it to the bank. Because if I don't know it's true, I won't mention it. And that's what you can depend on from my books is I do all the homework first so you don't have to. You can spend your time doing your own homework, that's fine. But you'll end up with the same answers that I've already got. Because I've already done the homework in advance. And I think that's worth something. I spent a long time building a reputation for that, and nobody's ever disproven or debunked anything I've said ever. And they never will, because I make sure it's true first.
That's important. That's really important. I have people that want me to have them on my show, and I listen to what they've told others, and I recoil at all the religiosity of it. If it's not 3D true, I don't care how religious you are.
Yeah, that's not the point. I mean, if it's true, there will be ways to verify it. And I've got enough sources now that I can verify it multiple ways, you know? I can verify it multiple ways and multiple positions and everywhere from people that were in the SSP to people that worked in the Pentagon or general officers. I got them all on my contact list, you know? And if you're lying, I will bust you. I will bust you, and it won't take me long because I've been doing this for too long, you know? Yeah. And I know as soon as you start lying to me, I'll know it because I already know what you're telling me, you know? And I already know it's not what you said. And I pity those people because I have no mercy. This is too important. This is the most important thing the human race has ever contacted or come up against. It's the most crucially important and profound thing that we've ever encountered. And we don't have time for people bullshitting about namaste. Give me that crap. We got 21 invisible strands of DNA. Fuck you. We got lizards running our fucking country. That's what you better be worrying about.
We definitely have not normal people running our country.
Hey, did you see that tongue guy on my page?
I don't think they're all lizards, but there are a bunch of them that are not human.
Yeah, that's right. Did you see that tongue guy? Oh, you did see that tongue guy on my page. The guy with the tongue? He said you'd call for help. That's the creepiest, weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I didn't think anything could be creepier than Carrot Top, but that guy was creepier.
That guy was having something seriously wrong.
I think he was probably just what they said it was. He was probably A clone that was malfunctioning.
That's a clone that was malfunctioning, or someone having a really serious set of seizures.
He didn't look like he was having a seizure, did he?
Not a normal one, no.
He didn't look like he was. I don't know who that guy was. I wish I did.
But that was
one of the strangest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
scary. It was scary.
If I had been in the room with that guy, yeah, that would have been terrifying.
I would have hit him with the phaser. I would have kept that trigger down till he disappeared. I don't know what it was, but it's gone now, motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That was,
we're better off without it, you know.
For the audience, I'm going to find the clip and put it in the comments. But this guy his tongue was just like,
that was the weirdest thing you'll ever see.
Making weird motions at the bottom of it.
It was sticking way out of his mouth, like twice as far as it should.
Yeah.
It was completely surreal and bizarre.
Prehensile tongue, and the tip of it was making its own motions.
And he didn't seem to be aware that there was a problem.
And his eyes were fluttering, which is why I thought it was a seizure. But, you know, I've never seen anybody's tongue do that.
No, that wasn't a seizure. Your tongue doesn't do that in a seizure. That's not what happens. You know, that's not how it goes. Yeah, post that on your thing. People will be amazed, because I do believe that was most likely that was a non-human entity of some kind that was malfunctioning.
It was definitely malfunctioning in that form. I have never seen a tongue do that.
No.
The folks that I've seen have seizures, their tongue usually thickens up and gets really stiff and interferes with their breathing.
Right. It doesn't come sticking out of their mouth like that. They swallow their tongue, as they say.
Yeah. So,
as Ron White said, things that make you go.
Yeah. Things that make you go, what the fuck?
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, there's a lot more to this world and the folks that inhabit it than
it's not what we were told to expect at all.
No. And if you're paying attention, you'll see lots of, shall we say, anomalies.
Yeah, it's not what we were told to expect at all. Not at all. That was
definitely an anomaly in that video.
Yes. And I'll tell you something else. The thing about oil being fossil fuel, no, it's not. Coal is fossil fuel. You smash down fossils and leave them for a million years under pressure. They'll turn into coal. They're not going to turn into light, sweet crude. That's not what happens, you know.
I know that Velikovsky is not a popular writer, but he came up with the idea that petroleum had actually been of extraterrestrial origin and had dropped during near planetary encounters.
Huh.
So
they dropped a lot of it. You know, the Ghawar oil field in Saudi Arabia is 18 miles wide by 72 miles long by God knows how many miles deep. There's not that many fossils in the whole world to make that much oil. You know, there's not. Think how much plant life you'd have to smash down there to make that much oil. It's not even reasonable. So the thing about it being fossil fuel, it was a ploy by Rockefeller to make you think that they weren't making it anymore, so they'd run out of it, and he could charge you more for his oil.
Yeah. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan came up with all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
All kinds of shit. They took away cannabis, and people had been using cannabis for a lot more than getting high for a lot longer than we have recorded history.
Yeah.
Because you dig up some of these ancient graves and you find that they have little ceramic pots.
They say it was
that
the
are
first cultivated crop.
Yeah, cannabis, and the hemp was used for clothing and mats and rugs and everything else that could be woven.
Yep. Back in
It's
the days of
it's
the Revolutionary War, if you were a farmer, you had to grow a certain amount of hemp so they could make ropes out of it for the ships, for the Navy ships.
Yeah, and it's interesting, in the Constitution, we are allowed to have a standing navy with ropes at that time, but we're not allowed to have a standing army, because if we have a standing army, then we will be tempted to invade others.
Like we don't already.
I keep trying to figure out when we became an empire.
A long time ago.
Somewhere between the Civil War and World War I, and I'm not sure exactly when.
Well, we had all the power after the World Wars were over. We could
Yeah,
do. One thing that's true about the 20th century is if the U.S. government wants something bad enough, it will get it. If you try to hide from the U.S. government in a little hamlet in Guatemala somewhere because you're a tax cheat or whatever, if they want you bad enough, they'll find you, and they will find you. That's how powerful the U.S. government has been in our century.
In the program I was in, we are no longer chipped. They track us through our personal collection of frequencies, because each organ in your body has its own frequency, and the combination is individual and is as identifiable as your fingerprint.
Wow.
So they track you through that, and they can track you through satellites or ships. And if they're using a spaceship, they can track you anywhere in the solar system.
Wow.
By your personal frequencies. And they are so set in stone that they can use it for your entire life.
Wow.
And so I hear religious folks telling me, well, you can just change your frequency. No, you can't. You're born with that. That's who you are.
Yeah.
And, all of these people in the 80s that were getting chipped, they're not anymore.
Huh.
Now, the folks that are doing military abductions, a couple of them have talked to me, not on public record, but privately, and they've said, oh yeah, we get a big charge out of putting little chips of meteorite under your skin so that it itches and it's magnetic, so you think you've got something there. Yeah, that was my reaction, was like,
man,
you fuckers.
and a lot of those guys that are into that now, they chemically wipe their memory at the end of their shift, so they never know what they've been doing. They're not even aware that they've been abducting people, because they just wipe their memory, and you have to sign a document that allows them to do that before you're accepted into the program.
Yeah.
And if you don't sign it, you never progress any further. You're shifted laterally, but you never go any higher up.
Yeah, the ones that talked to me, they were at the point of they wanted to help the victims deal with it, but they didn't want to get in trouble. So their solution was to tell me,
right,
so that I could at least pass it on to the people that were suffering the most.
I've had people tell me that also. They couldn't talk because it would ruin their whole career and put their whole family in jeopardy. And these are people that have spent 40 years building a military career.
Yeah.
And they can't talk. He said, one of them said, I've gained rank, but it's been at the price of being able to speak.
Yeah. That's exactly the situation they're in. And then when they have a crisis of conscience because they hear somebody like me, then they're like, well, what do I do? So their solution is to speak to me privately.
It's a good solution.
It
That's
is.
what it was. The same with me. They said, listen, I can't tell people this, but you can. And when you say it, they'll believe you. So I've been watching you, and I know people trust you. And so this is what I want you to tell them. Just don't use my name.
Yeah. It's, you can tell them that I'm in this agency. And I'm like, alrighty. And then I will get these contacts. There's this woman that she tells me she's NSA, but her email is from DOD. And she wanted me to bring, oh, what was,
Don't even say it.
she wanted me to bring in a rogue agent. And this person was supposedly killing other agents. And so it was, you know, we need this because national security, because these people are heroes, because blah, 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 blah.
They don't need, they can do all that themselves if they want to. Stay
Yeah,
out of
well,
that stuff.
I was stupid and said yes on one of them. And it ended up that the rogue agent had been told I was the rogue agent and was assigned to kill me. And I wasn't supposed, I had already said, I'm not going to kill this person. I'm just, you know, I'm going to talk to her, find out what she thinks she's doing. And what she thought she was doing was she was assigned to kill people who had left the programs. And I'll just say I'm still here.
That's how the funniest thing was. It was a Facebook message copy, you know, from T2000. And he was going through finding everyone that was named Sarah Connor and messaging him. Sarah Connor? Sarah Connor? Sarah Connor? Finding everyone that's named Sarah Connor and messaging him until he found the right target.
That is pretty much the way they do it. But this particular person, you know, if they tell you they're from an agency, don't trust them. Oh, that brought up, I have a pet peeve. Why is the disclosure movement suddenly trusting agents?
Oh, disclosure movement's a joke. There's never going to be disclosure in our lifetimes. Forget about that. I've never been part of the disclosure movement. I'm not even sure that's really a good idea. Some people deserve to know, but everybody couldn't handle it. You think that blacks and the whites have trouble in getting along with each other in Alabama? Well, you see how they get along with aliens.
Oh yeah, that I had contact with an ET species, and I gave them a mental picture of, well, I grew up in this subculture, so I'm not picking at them. I gave them a picture of Billy Bob in a pickup with the rack of shotguns in the back window, finding a ship and deciding to end this himself. And I said, that's what you're going to have to deal with.
Then he's going to go to a little food stand and say, I'll have me some of them French fried potatoes.
Yeah. I grew up in that subculture, so these are my people. I'm not making fun of them. I'm just very aware that this is their attitude.
We've been dumbed down to the point where a lot of people, they don't know any better. And we've been dumbed down that way intentionally, and I don't know any solution to it. I don't know any solution to it.
Well, if you look at it, IQ is defined that 100 is our average. And that means half the population is below that.
Right. Right. Half the population below straight C's.
Exactly. So you have to keep in mind that we're the A students.
But you can't do nothing about those people. There's no help for stupid people. And there's too many of them around, but you can't keep them from being stupid. And when they go to vote, they always vote for the stupidest possible person because that's who they identify with. That's the only one they can understand. And so they vote for the dumbest possible person. You end up with George W. Bush in the White House, you know. I mean, that's the problem with one vote per person. You can't let idiots vote.
I have often wondered why they let them vote.
Because we're too permissive. You can't let idiots vote because idiots are idiots. They don't know nothing about nothing. It's like
I have come to the conclusion that voting means nothing simply based on the evidence that otherwise they would not let those people vote.
Well, yeah, that's probably true. But look at the Tennessee Hill people that drink strychnine and let rattlesnakes crawl in their face. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
if you looked around this world and you got any answers right, the first two answers you'd get is don't drink strychnine and don't let rattlesnakes bite you in the face. That's the first two answers you'd get. And if you got both of those wrong, you're not going to get anything else right. So don't let them vote. If you're dumb enough to drink strychnine, we can do without your vote. We'll decide the president on our own. That's my theory.
I just don't think voting matters. I think it might actually still matter at the local level.
It got Trump elected, but that was, I think, an exception.
Well,
they weren't expecting that.
No, they weren't expecting that. They're still mad as hell about it.
They're trying to do everything they can to keep him from getting back in office now. And they've hated him the whole time.
You know, I look at him and I look at Biden and I'm like, you know, at least they let Obama look smart.
But Obama, you couldn't tell the difference between him and Bush. If somebody didn't tell you he was president, you couldn't tell the difference. Trump, for all of his faults, and he has many, at least he was trying to do the right thing, and he wasn't anyone's bitch. You can't scare a person that has $9 billion. You can't corrupt someone that has $9 billion. What are you going to do, pay him off? You know, you can't threaten someone with $9 billion. He can hire 1,000 guys to surround him at all times with Uzis and still have $8.5 billion left at the end. You know, so at least he was trying. And he tried to get the wall built, and they wouldn't let him because the Illuminati didn't give them permission to build that wall.
You know, I just found an article where that Biden is continuing that wall.
No, he's not. Biden doesn't know what the hell he's continuing. He's continuing senility is what he's continuing.
Yeah, I know. He thought he was running against Joe Biden for office.
He's the most dumbest shame I've ever seen. Yeah. I knew he was bad news as soon as I'm sniffing them girls' hair.
There's so much in American politics that I look at it and it's like there's no way that we got here by voting.
Well, but it controls our future. I mean, the people that get elected to office, whether they get elected legally or not, they control our future and our destiny. So it counts.
Oh, yeah, it counts. But at the same time, I don't think our individual votes do. And why I don't is because in 2012, I saw Ron Paul have the Republican nomination stolen from him.
Yeah.
And in that same election in California, we had 2 million ballots shredded.
Well, they control the media. They control the media, and that controls the election in the end.
No, this was voting. It was the Secretary of State authorized the shredding of 2 million votes.
Yep.
In the 2012 election. Okay, then we go to the 2016 election, and I saw the DNC take the nomination from
Bernie Sanders.
And both of these guys went to court.
And then they committed election fraud too, and still lost.
Yes. And so both of these guys went to court and were told that the RNC and the DNC were both private corporations and could nominate who the hell they wanted, regardless of the votes. Well, at that point, it ceases to be a democracy or a republic and becomes two private corporations running the country.
Well, they're both controlled by the same people.
Exactly.
The same people control them both, and whoever gets elected doesn't really matter because they're still not going to close that border, for instance.
They're still not going to close that border.
They're still not going to get our budget balanced because that's not what the people in control have in mind.
What the people in control have in mind is creating situations where there are lots of weapons sold, where resources are deliberately kept scarce, where people are constantly on edge. And slowly but surely, everything is taken from us.
Well, they're doing it right in front of our eyes.
And we're sitting back and swallowing.
Well, I got a tactical 12 gauge with 7-shot magazine and 250 rounds of police buckshot. So they're going to know they've been in a fight before they take me out.
Well, I don't talk about publicly what I have or have not in the way of defensive weapons. I get in enough trouble for what I do talk about.
Well, let's call this a night. I'm getting kind of tired, and I think you are too.
Yeah, my Tylenol's wearing off, and my back's really starting to hurt.
Well, it's nice talking to you. Let's do this again sometime. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Penny.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for being my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming, and thank you, audience, for listening.
Have a good evening. Bye for now.